Welcome back. Now that the core functionality of our application is in place, let's shift gears to authentication. We want to make it so a user must log in to view and create lists and to-dos, and when they log in, they only see their own lists, not lists from other users. Nokkio features built-in authentication that is integrated with other core parts of Nokkio, like the router, Nokkio Magic, and Nokkio Forms. In this video, we'll begin laying the groundwork for applications authentication. First, Nokkio's authentication requires a dedicated model that represents the concept of a user or account in your application. In schema.js, let's add a new user model for this purpose. While this user model can have whatever fields your app needs, Nokkio requires that two fields exist: a username field with type set to a unique string, and a password field using Nokkio's built-in password type that takes care of hashing and securely storing your passwords. We then need to tell Nokkio to use this model as the authentication model by calling act as auth. Finally, we return the new model at the end of the function alongside our existing models. Before we go, let's also weave our new model into our hierarchy. Users will now sit at the top of the heap and have many lists and to-dos. With this change, I want to start from scratch. So I'll delete my local database file by removing the dev.sqlite file in my applications directory. Then I'll restart Nokkio's dev server. Now that we have an authentication model, we want to limit access to the two pages in our application to only authenticated users. In Nokkio, this works by changing the page module file name so that it ends in auth.tsx, or auth.js if your project doesn't use TypeScript. Notice that as soon as we change the file name, Nokkio automatically redirected us to a login path since we aren't logged in. We'll work on the login and registration page in the next video, but for now we can use Nokkio's dev tools to create a user and log them in. First, we'll create a user with _n models user, calling the create method with a username and password. Then we can call the login method with that new user, and Nokkio logs us in and automatically sends us back to the page we came from. At this point, we can create a new list and add some to-dos to that list. So everything seems to be working, but that's a little misleading. In an incognito window, I'm going to create a different user, Jane, and log them in. But Jane can see the list we created in the Other Users tab, and that's not what we want. And if Jane creates a list of her own, I can also see it back in my tab. The fix here is to update our list.find call to only return the list for the current user. Since lists and users are tied via a relationship, we can swap find for the find for user method here. But we need a reference to the current user. Luckily, the getPageData function receives that as part of its first argument, and we can pass auth ID to find for user. Now, I'm only seeing my list here, and if I go back to the other browser, it is only showing Jane's. So in just a few minutes here, we've wrapped our application in an authentication layer. In the next video, we'll use Nokkio Forms to create a login and registration page. See you then.